Hi, my name is James Jazzy Jordan, and I want to tell you some of my experiences in the music business. And the biggest experience that we're going to talk about today is Verity Records. Verity Records, when I joined Zomba Recording Corporation, which are the owners, or were the owners, I should say, of Jive Records, I joined Jive Records as their vice president of black music marketing. But they had a little label in the corner called Verity Records. And no one paid attention to Verity. The label was 6 months old. It was a gospel label. And gospel labels traditionally do not make a lot of money. So therefore, the company started this label, but they really did not have a lot of belief in the label. So they asked me, in addition to my other duties, would I get involved with the label and would I oversee the label in the day-to-day operations of the label. So I readily agreed because I felt a calling from on high, let's just say, because it was not my normal positioning in the music business because I'd worked at a number of different labels and it was all just about music and this was about more. But some of my challenges were the president of the company, the CFO, you might as well say everyone, really did not think that this had an opportunity to really develop and make money for the company because, again, it's a corporation and corporations are about making money. They're not about anything else, so they'll do what they have to do that. So when I took on this challenge, they had two artists, Vanessa Bell Armstrong and John P. Key. So the first release we put out was by Pastor John P. Key, and the title of the project was Show Up. Well, with good fortune, we sold 500,000 copies in 12 months. Now you say, how did I do that when nobody believed in the label and we didn't have any employees except for one, and she was an assistant to the label and she had no one to assist because there was no other employees. So coming into that, I knew it was going to be an extremely large challenge. But I had skills. I had the skill and the knowledge of knowing how to set up projects because I had worked with everyone from Will Smith in his early days to Salt and Pepper to R. Kelly and, et cetera, et cetera. So I used some of the skills that I learned from that. For example, at most major conventions, I would hire or rent a channel in the hotel. And this was before it became really, really popular to do that because nobody was doing it. So the hotels are like, yeah, sure, we'll rent you a channel. So they rented us a channel for like $1,000 for over a 3-day period. And I took John's long form video, which is approximately 90 minutes running time, and I looped it. So it would run 24 hours a day. So every registrant would see this video in their room over and over and over anytime they were in their room. And it was such a great idea and so popular that John just became the talk of that convention. Also, what we did to bring John to the forefront, we created or we purchased the key cards. When you check into a hotel, they give you a key to your room. And we printed on these key cards with John's image and information about his project, when it was coming out, release date, etc., etc. And this cost us a grand total of maybe $300 to do. So it was a huge, huge success. The other thing we were able to do is work with radio. And again, remind you, I had no radio person. I had to train the assistant how to make radio calls, how to talk to radio people. And so I was juggling a lot of balls at the same time, still doing my marketing gig at Jive. So it made it extremely difficult because finding the time that I needed in order to accomplish everything that I wanted to get done. And I knew that if I was not successful with this John P. Key project, I knew that there's a possibility they could shut this label down because there was not a lot of belief in this label. So, as I said, we dropped the project. The project was set up so superbly that we just started selling CDs, like crazy. And within 12 months, we sold 500,000 units, which of course is classified as gold. And that just changed the complete attitude of the label and everybody there, that this is something that they should spend their money on. In addition to that, within a 4-year period, we have become the largest gospel label in the world. Because what we did, we became very, very aggressive after John. But, there were still challenges. Because now we ended up signing more and more artists. And what happens when you sign artists? You have to have staffing. We still did not have the proper staffing. So I was spending maybe some, I would say days of maybe 14, 15 hours between my 2 gigs, even though I was only getting paid for one. But, it was a very, very interesting, challenging journey, and one that I will ever be thankful for because, to take something that nobody believes in, use all the materials that you can find, because it's like, in a way, it's almost like turning water into wine, because you have a situation where you don't have very much money, you don't have staff, so it's all about what you know and how you can figure out ways to get it done, and and training one person who turned out to be a very excellent worker and very, very smart. So that really helped. But, maybe that was the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life.
And how long was your tenure with Verity Gospel?
I stayed at Verity for 17 years. And, of course, the last 14 years was nothing like the first 13 years, because we managed to acquire and develop gold and platinum artists. Like, for example, we brought on a Fred Hammond that was selling maybe 90,000 units, and his first project, we took that to make that a gold record, which is 500,000 units. His second release, we took it platinum. So, we were taking artists that were, selling a minimum amount of units, and we took them to the higher echelons of the music business. And that's why the label was voted #1 label for 15 out of my 17 years.
Right. I'm reading online a couple of articles that says that your label amassed 13 gold and 10 platinum certified releases and achieved a record number of top 10 singles during your tenure. If you could say, round a number up, how many records would you say you've sold in your career?
In my career, including Verity and others, I've sold a total of 200 million CDs, which would equate to $2 billion in music sales.
That's impressive. quite impressive. So we know about Verity. Just to round things off and let the listener or the viewer have him understand that gospel isn't your only niche. Tell us a little bit about some other genres and labels that you've been blessed to be a part of.
Again, being at Verity for 17 years, that made me at Jive for 17 years. Even though I stopped doing Jive marketing after maybe 8 or 9 years, I stopped doing marketing at Jive, and I worked then exclusively for Verity. And with Jive, I worked on the R. Kelly projects, and R. Kelly himself, as like him or not, he sold 75 million CDs himself. I worked with Joe, another artist that was tremendously successful, selling probably 5 million CDs. Tribe Called Quest, KRS-One, gosh, so many. I worked prior to Jive. I was over at Polygram, and had the pleasure at Polygram of working with artists everywhere from Will Downing, one of the greatest voices I've ever heard, to working with PM Dawn. And I can recall walking around with PM Dawn's advanced music and trying to figure out how in the world are we going to make this a hit, because it was such great music. I knew that everybody needed to hear it. Set Adrift is just a sensational song that, just, I don't know, it just sends chills through me to think about it now. Also there, Salt and Pepper, very necessary. Even though they've had successful releases, or they had successful releases in the past, very necessary with Shoop and What a Man was their biggest record, selling over 6 million units. So, so again, that was a lot of success there as well. And of course, there are others, and I'm sure I'm leaving someone out, and, please forgive me. Prior to that, I worked at RCA. And again, working at RCA, we worked with Jive Records, and Jive Records still had some of the same artists, and they also had a young man that you guys probably know of from a different platform, and his name was Will Smith. And of course, he was at the time DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, and they had one album with Parents Just Don't Understand on it that sold 3 million copies at a time when rap music was not selling, those type of numbers. So quite impressive there. And, I can't even really name all the artists. I would have to look at my bio to name all the artists that I worked with there, but it was also really a great learning ground. And my foray into the label side came at Tommy Boy Records. And what was really inspiring about Tommy Boy Records, they had this group called the Force MDs. And the Force MDs, they were from Staten Island, and they could really sing, very, very talented. And this was a time when you had more singing groups. So we put out their project, and they had a song called Love is a House. And I promoted that song to number one. It was number one on the Billboard chart, and that gave Tommy Boy Records their only number one song in history. So I'm thrilled to have been a part of that, of course. So my music career just spans in so many different directions. Because, of course, before I went on the label side, I was on the radio side as a radio announcer. Before that, I owned my own record store. Also, I worked in my brother-in-law's record store. So you could say music has been my life. I've never done anything else but music. Music is what I love. Music is what I do. And, and you always got to make it do what it's going to do.
Okay. That's wonderful, Mr. Jordan. Now, you may not be aware of this, but there may be young industry professionals just entering the workforce, eager to have successful careers like the one that you are so eloquently speaking of today. If you could speak to them and give them one word of encouragement or a word of encouragement, what would that encouragement be? What would you say to them?
I would say, A, do what you love. B, fear. Yeah, you need to have fear. You need to not fear that you're going to fail. What you need to do is fear that I don't want to fail. So I'm going to work harder than anyone else to make sure I don't fail. Because failure is not an option. That's what you have to do. You have to work hard. You have to be determined, and and you have to have perseverance in everything you do. You have to believe. Number one thing you have to do is believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, you have no shot. Because you're going to get, even if you start in the mailroom, you have to become a linchpin. You say, what is a linchpin? A linchpin is someone that your company can't do without. Your linchpin is, if you're a linchpin, it's like, if they're a layoff, well, I know my name is not on it because I do my job and more.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan, very much for your time and attention today. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.